Welcome to Naughty Relationship Stories, where passion, drama, secrets, and unexpected twists come alive. After the divorce, I promised myself I'd keep things simple. No drama, no entanglements. Just me, the kids, and a fresh start in a house that no longer echoed with shouting or silence. I was done being the woman who waited at the window, hoping he'd come home early or at all. So when my ex-husband's best friend, Noah, showed up on my doorstep with that crooked, boyish smile and an overnight bag slung over his shoulder, I didn't think twice. He was family, or at least he used to be. He said he was in town for a few weeks, working on a construction project and needed a place to crash. I told him the guest room was his. He thanked me with that soft, easy voice I hadn't heard in years. We hugged, brief, familiar, and something in me tightened. Just a flicker. Just a heartbeat. The first few days were harmless. Friendly. Comfortable even. Noah brewed coffee in the mornings while I got the kids ready. He'd ask about work, help with the dishwasher, fix that leaky faucet my ex always said he'd get to. At night, after the house had quieted, we'd sit on the couch with a blanket between us and some half-watched Netflix series playing in the background. He didn't talk much, but he listened, and he noticed things, like how I started rubbing the back of my neck when I was tired, or how I liked exactly one spoonful of sugar in my tea, or how I always laughed at the wrong parts in romantic comedies. Noah noticed the cracks. Not to fix them, but for the first time in a long time I felt seen. It wasn't supposed to turn into anything, but late one night, after a particularly bitter phone call with my ex about custody and schedules and who gets what, I came out to the kitchen for a drink, only to find Noah there. He was shirtless, the low lamp above the sink casting soft shadows over his chest and collarbone. He turned around and his eyes met mine, and neither of us said a word. My throat tightened. His jaw flexed. I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew I was tired of feeling alone, of being touched only in anger or not at all. And when he took a step toward me, slowly, like he was afraid I'd disappear, I didn't stop him. That was the night everything changed. The next morning, I found him in the kitchen, shirtless, wearing nothing but a pair of low-slung athletic shorts that clung a little too perfectly to his hips. His hair was damp, sticking up in the back like he'd just come out of the shower, and a thin sheen of sweat still kissed his chest. He looked like something out of a dream I wasn't supposed to be having. And God help me, I couldn't stop looking. His muscles flexed with every movement, biceps tightening as he reached for a mug, the deep V of his torso disappearing into the waistband of those shorts. And below that, there was no mistaking it. I could see the outline of him through the fabric. Thick, heavy, impossible to ignore. My breath caught. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder with that easy smile. The one that made me feel naked even when I was fully dressed. I mumbled something that might have been hi, trying to act normal while every nerve in my body lit up like a live wire. My legs felt weak. My thighs pressed together involuntarily. And worst of all, he didn't seem to notice what he was doing to me. Or maybe he did, and that made it even harder to breathe. He handed me a cup of coffee, fingers brushing mine. My skin tingled. "Didn't mean to wake you," he said. "I was just grabbing a quick workout." Workout. Right. I bit my lip and tried not to stare again as he leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee, sweat still clinging to the ridges of his abs. I could barely think straight. My husband had never looked like that. Not even close. And he'd definitely never made me feel like this just by existing in the same room. Noah was everything I'd secretly wanted in a man. Strong but gentle. Confident without arrogance. The way he listened. The way he looked at me like I mattered. And now he was living in my house. Practically naked, and completely off limits. We made small talk, but I barely heard a word. My gaze kept drifting down. Every time he moved, I saw it. Thick and heavy between his thighs, barely contained by the thin fabric of his shorts. My cheeks flushed. I wrapped my robe tighter, as if it might help rein in the hunger rising inside me. He caught me staring once. Just briefly. And for a second his jaw tightened like he felt it too. Like he knew exactly what was happening and was just waiting for me to admit it. But neither of us said a word. I tried to shake it off. I told myself it was just curiosity. Harmless attraction. But deep down I knew better. This wasn't harmless anymore. This was dangerous. And it was only just beginning. Later that night the storm rolled. Loud, angry, and unexpected. I just put the kids to bed when the first crack of thunder shook the windows. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. And then came the knock. Soft and hesitant. I opened the door and there he was. Soaked to the skin, hoodie clinging to his broad shoulders, water dripping from his hair down his jawline. His shirt was plastered to him, revealing the shape of his chest, the sharp cut of his torso. But it was the shorts, dark and drenched, that made my breath catch. They hung low on his hips, stuck to every line of muscle, and more. There was no hiding anything in fabric like that. And I saw it. Full, heavy, unmistakably aroused. My eyes lingered too long, and when I finally met his gaze again, he knew. Neither of us said a word. I stepped aside. He walked in, dripping onto the kitchen floor, breathing hard like he'd been running, or holding something back for too long. "My car stalled out on the way back," he said, pulling off the wet hoodie, revealing bare skin beneath. I didn't want to wait for the rain to stop. I swallowed hard, eyes glued to the way his abs flexed as he tugged the soaked fabric over his head. "You're drenched," I said, barely above a whisper. He nodded, kicking off his shoes, then peeled his shirt off completely. I didn't have a jacket. The silence was thick, hot. His chest rose and fell slowly, water running down his sides, tracing every muscle. Then his fingers hooked the waistband of his shorts. "I need dry clothes," he said, locking eyes with me. "Unless you'd rather I drip all over your kitchen." I froze. He pulled the shorts down anyway, slow, deliberate, until they hit the floor with a wet slap. He stood there, naked, the overhead light casting soft shadows across his body. He wasn't embarrassed. Not even a little. He was calm, controlled, and completely focused on me. I tried to look away. I tried to remember how to breathe, but I couldn't move. Not when every part of him, every beautiful, forbidden part, was exactly what I had longed for in silence. Not when my body was already reacting, heart pounding, thighs clenching, skin burning. "I shouldn't be here like this," he said. "But I couldn't stop thinking about you." I swallowed, lips parting. "You don't have to leave." His eyes softened. "You sure?" I stepped closer, slowly, fingers trembling as I reached out and touched his chest, warm beneath the rain. My palm flattened against his heart. It was racing. "I'm sure." And then we collided. His hands gripped my waist, pulled me flush against him. His mouth found mine, no hesitation this time, and I moaned into the kiss, deep and hungry, years of neglect unraveling in a single breath. His fingers slid under my shirt, up my spine, drawing a gasp from my lips. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. That night in my kitchen, the storm wasn't just outside. It was in us. He undressed me like he'd been waiting years, not minutes. There was no patience, no softness, just need. Hot, breathless, undeniable need. He spun me around and bent me over the counter, hands gripping my hips with a force that made me gasp. I should have felt shame, but all I felt was alive. No, it didn't ask, he took. Like a man starved, devouring every sound I made, every tremble in my legs, every desperate grip of my fingers on the counter's edge. My robe was open, bare skin against cool granite, and he pressed against me like he wanted to leave a mark. And God, I wanted to be marked. There was nothing gentle about the way he moved. No sweet, practiced rhythm. Just raw hunger. He didn't make love to me, he claimed me. With every thrust, every deep groan, every bruising grip, he pulled something out of me I didn't know still existed. The woman who used to fantasize about being wanted like this. Taken, owned, utterly wrecked. I cried out his name again and again, and he answered each one with more. More heat. More power. More of him. And when I finally shattered, when I collapsed against the counter sobbing his name, trembling from the inside out, it wasn't just release. It was resurrection. In that storm, under lightning and thunder, I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt chosen. Desired. Completely, shamelessly alive. But he wasn't done. Not even close. Without a word, he lifted me off the counter, cradled me in his arms like I weighed nothing, and carried me through the quiet dark of the house, straight into my bedroom. My bed. The one I once shared with a man who never touched me like this. Never saw me like this. Noah tossed back the covers and laid me down like something precious, before wrecking me all over again. There was no more pretending. No more hesitation. He was in control, fully, completely, and I surrendered without resistance. He didn't make love to me that night. He owned me. Over and over, in every way a man could take a woman. with hands that pinned me, with eyes that burned through me, with words whispered so filthy and tender they undid me piece by piece. I gave him everything, and he took it, again, and again, and again. By the time the storm outside faded to silence, my body was trembling, my throat hoarse, my sheets soaked in sweat and memory. I couldn't move, could barely breathe, but I didn't care, because for the first time in years, I hadn't just been touched. I'd been seen. I fell asleep under his weight, his warmth, his breath on my neck, completely claimed, thoroughly ruined, and shamelessly satisfied. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains. I tried to sit up and winced. I was sore, everywhere, but the ache only made me smile, because it wasn't pain, it was proof. Proof that someone had finally taken the time to explore me, worship me, use me like I was worth it. I could still feel the bruises on my hips, the bite on my shoulder, the phantom grip of his hands, and I didn't regret a thing. I got out of bed slowly, legs weak, hair wild, and padded toward the kitchen wearing nothing but my robe. I had forgotten to get the kids ready for school. But when I got to the kitchen, he had already made breakfast, got them ready and sent them on their way. There he was, shirtless, coffee in hand, looking like sin with a smirk. "You okay?" he asked, eyes trailing down my body. I leaned against the counter and smiled. "Sore," I said honestly, "but I don't mind." As I didn't. I'd given myself to him completely, and now I was under his thumb, body, heart, breath, and I didn't mind one bit. I stood there in the kitchen, sipping coffee from his cup, still wearing nothing but a loose robe that hung off one shoulder, brushing the tops of my thighs, and just the sight of me like that had him staring again. His jaw flexed. His eyes darkened, like he was already thinking about taking me right there against the counter. And God help me, I wanted him to. But before he could move, the sound of my phone buzzing on the table cut through the air like a blade. I glanced at the screen and froze. My ex-husband. I didn't answer, just stared at the name, a name that used to make my stomach flutter, now made it twist. "He's coming today," I said quietly, "to pick up a few things he left behind." Noah stepped closer, crowding my space, his voice low against my ear. "Let him take whatever he wants, but not you." I closed my eyes and leaned into him. I knew this couldn't stay hidden forever. Knew the line we crossed couldn't be uncrossed. But right now I didn't care. Because in that moment, wrapped in his heat, still sore from a night that changed everything, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Wanted. Not tolerated. Not pitied. And as Noah kissed the side of my neck and his hand slid beneath the hem of my robe that still smelled like him, I knew one thing for certain. Whatever came next, the lies, the guilt, the chaos, I wouldn't take it back. Because for the first time in a long, lonely stretch of my life, I finally felt alive. The knock on the door came later than expected. Just one, then two more, firm, impatient. I was still in my robe, my hair wild, lips swollen from everything he'd done to me in the hours before. He was in the shower and part of me wanted to ignore the door. Let it go unanswered. Let the past stay outside. But reality didn't work like that. I opened the door, and there he was, my ex, looking tired, holding a cardboard box, scanning me in my robe as it hung loosely over my shoulder, before his eyes narrowed. "Didn't expect you to be home," he said flatly. I stepped aside without a word, heart pounding. He walked in like he still owned the place, and I hated that I flinched at the sound of his shoes on the hardwood. From down the hall, I heard the water shut off. My stomach tightened. "What's he still doing here?" he asked, motioning toward the guest room, the room that hadn't really been just a guest room since last night. "He's working in town," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Needed a place to crash. And you're just letting him stay here? After everything?" I crossed my arms. "After everything you did, I think I'm allowed to decide who I open my door to." His jaw clenched, but he didn't say more. Just moved around the living room, grabbing things like he had a right to them. The throw blanket he never used, the charger he left plugged into the wall. As if he could reclaim anything of value now. Noah stepped out of the hallway then. Hair damp. Shirtless. Low-slung joggers hugging his hips in a way that made my ex stiffen and me silently scream inside. "Morning," Noah said evenly, voice calm but firm. My ex said nothing. Just looked between us. The silence stretched long and sharp. Then he turned, box in hand, and walked out without another word. I closed the door slowly, pulse still racing. Noah came up behind me, hands sliding over my waist. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, breathing out shakily. "He knows. I don't care," he said, voice low in my ear. "Let him know what it feels like to lose something good." His hand slid under the hem of the shirt again. And even with the weight of what just happened, my body responded. Because it wasn't over. This wasn't some one-night slip. It was a beginning, messy, dangerous, addictive. And I knew then. The storm hadn't passed. It had only just begun. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to subscribe for more spicy stories.